If you're looking for a first-person shooter with tight gunplay, smart and deadly enemies, deep but streamlined gameplay systems, and immaculate vibes, Witchfire might be the game for you. The game comes from The Astronauts, a Polish studio headed up by the original founders of People Can Fly, the developer behind titles such as Bulletstorm and Outriders, and then, after forming their new studio, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, a walking sim detective game? This is why you should care about Witchfire. Witchfire is inspired by several different games, including both Dark Souls and Destiny, according to the developers themselves, and those inspirations are worn on the game's sleeve. Witchfire has the player take on the role of a prayer, a witch hunter that is tasked with seeking out and taking down the eponymous enchantresses. After selecting one of 6 prayers, each with different focuses and starting gear, you'll go on expeditions into different territories that the game's witches have dominated. Armed with a variety of firearms and magical spells, you will take down mobs that have been brought under the witches' control, a variety of different enemies challenging you in various ways, such as the lunging swordsman, the sniping arcbuster, and the hollow wretches that use magical blasts that slowly track you down. Taking down bad guys will cause them to drop Witchfire, the resource that makes the game's gothic world go round. Witchfire can then be brought back to the game's hub, the Hermitorium, in order to level up your various stats. You can also start research projects in the Hermitorium, which over time will give you access to a plethora of different gear, such as new weapons, spells, and items that augment your character. Witchfire can also be spent to unlock hidden areas within the hub that will provide access to new tools to take on your witchy foes. You can decide to retreat back to the Hermitorium at any time in your expedition to bank the Witchfire you've already collected, as long as you are able to hunt down the limited portals that offer you safe haven. However, if you should perish on your journey, you'll drop all the Witchfire you've gathered, and will need to venture back out and visit your remains if you should hope to collect it. While it may seem at first that finding the boss that controls each of the regions would be relatively easy, considering how concisely each location is built, the various locales are deceptively designed, and vanquishing the witches at the heart of them will take numerous runs that will ask you to upgrade your prayer accordingly, as well as complete specific objectives to peel back the layers of each territory. Mixing the aesthetics and gameplay of the Soulsborne series with tight, Destiny-like gameplay, all tucked in a roguelite wrapper, makes for an incredibly satisfying experience that will have you declaring just one more run after every expedition. But developer The Astronauts hasn't just plugged in a bunch of borrowed gameplay systems. It has tied them all together with its own ingenious mechanics that make Witchfire feel wholly unique, the most obvious of which is the game's dodging and stamina system. When you start an expedition, your stamina meter will be yellow, known in the games as being focused. If you dodge in focus while looking at an enemy, a floating red orb will appear next to them for a handful of seconds. If you can shoot this orb before it disappears, you will stun the enemy, opening them up for massive amounts of damage. Of course, this mechanic isn't easily exploitable. If you take damage, you'll be kicked out of focus, and will need to rack up some more kills in order to get it back. This is a good balance of rewarding those who can get into a good flow state, and equally incentivizes players to find it again once that flow, focus, is broken. Witchfire's unique spells and demonic weapons offer interesting new gameplay dynamics. One heavy spell allows you to create an ethereal bell, which when shot, sends out a stunning ring that can bring a horde of enemies to a complete standstill, an incredibly useful tool when up against a mob of bad guys. We have just scratched the surface of the different gameplay systems and mechanics that grow and expand at a satisfying pace that you will discover if you play the game. Needless to say, Witchfire feels like a smart combination of familiar design with new ideas, all condensed into a tight and rewarding experience. Witchfire has been in development for a long time. After departing People Can Fly in the early 2010s, the founders of the Astronauts quickly spun up their first project, the critically acclaimed Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which Witchfire does have hints of in its exploration. A year after that game's release, the Astronauts began development of Witchfire in 2015, with the game getting its first trailer at the 2017 Game Awards. The game then entered early access in 2023, as an Epic Games Store exclusive, before coming to Steam in September 2024, still in early access, albeit with numerous updates. Now, I know some people are averse to the idea of jumping into an early access game, but Witchfire feels way more finished and polished than some games that fall under the early access banner, and I would even say that early access plays to the game's roguelite design very well. The Astronauts have clearly been hard at work on the game, with several meaty updates to the early access experience over the last year, including new locations such as the Isle of the Damned, a rocky island with a towering structure at its center. All that time, the developers have been in constant communication with their audience via numerous blog posts that offer a refreshingly candid and transparent look at how the game is progressing. This is a game that the developers clearly want to provide frequent and meaningful updates for. The rollout of updates plays nicely with the game's roguelite design. The locations you take expeditions to are meant to be repeatedly explored, additional excursions taking you just that bit further into their labyrinthine layouts and uncovering their numerous secrets. There is definitely a nice layer of Souls-like exploration, where the game's lore and story is revealed through its environments, so they are designed to be explored and experienced thoroughly and repeatedly, rather than be set aside as you move on to the next thing. Of course, there is absolutely nothing wrong waiting for the final build of the game, which the team believes will release in late 2025. However, after putting numerous hours into the game's early access, I do think that there is plenty here to get you hooked. One of my favorite aspects of Witchfire is how many quality of life designs there are. For example, when you return to the Hermitorium from an expedition, it will provide you a checklist of the different things you can do with what you've accomplished on the run, such as if you have enough Witchfire to level up your character, if you've unlocked an upgrade for the weapons you kitted yourself out with, and if you have any research projects that can start up or are now complete. The game also feels manageable, both from an inventory and lore perspective, comparable to both Dark Souls and Destiny, two franchises that can be overwhelming with information. While the tidbits of information you gain from items or elements in the various regions are all you really have to piece together the history of Witchfire's world, there aren't dozens of proper nouns to memorize, and the game's lore feels at an appropriate level as to not be paper thin, but to also not be so deep that you get lost easily. That being said, if you do plan to start up Witchfire after watching this video, here are some tips for the early hours of the game. After you die or return to the Hermitorium, your elixirs, which grant you health, will replenish automatically. However, these elixirs must first be crafted, which requires the plant Angelica that you can find out in the world. One Angelica can create 2 elixirs, which after being brewed, are placed in a stash that the prayer automatically pulls from to fill their elixir slots on their person before setting out on a new expedition. While the game is very generous with how many elixirs you can create and have stored away, do not forget to keep an eye out for and harvest Angelica as you explore the various regions. When you start an expedition, it will warn you if you do not have your full allotment of elixirs filled, which will signify that your stash has run dry and you should craft some more before setting out. Research projects work in a similar vein, visiting the workshop in between expeditions, barring you have the gold to start them. Research projects are the predominant way to acquire new weapons, spells, and various augments. Before setting out on an expedition, you'll also be warned if you have research available, but haven't initiated any research. However, I recommend being picky when it comes to research. As mentioned, you need gold in order to start each project, which can be sparsely found on your journeys. Be critical of what you actually need and invest based on that. Don't just start research for the sake of it. Likewise, I don't recommend boosting your research tasks with gold in order to expedite them. Maybe this is worth it in the late game, but it's definitely not worth the gold at the start. It's a little bit nebulous how research time is tracked, but it definitely includes taking out enemies. In fact, kills affect so many systems. It's kind of its own currency in the game. Want to gain focus? Kill. Want to replenish spells? Kill. Want to get your melee back quicker? Kill. Want to complete research? Kill. When in doubt, kill, kill, kill. In between all the killing, you'll be doing a lot of dodging. As mentioned, if you use too much of your stamina, you'll be kicked out of focus, and if you fully deplete the gauge, the game really penalizes you by reducing your maneuverability drastically. So be as smart and conservative with your stamina as possible. Also keep in mind you can only dodge on the ground. You cannot dodge while jumping. As you explore, you'll hear the sound of a pen scratching on paper. If you keep an eye on the bottom left corner of the screen, the game is notifying you about changes to the world, such as the essence of a Witchfire nugget being detected nearby. Witchfire can coalesce into chunks of different sizes that you can pick up, and importantly, won't lose upon death. You can usually spot them as glowing red in the environment, but sometimes you'll be notified about them before you see them. Always keep an eye out on that bottom left corner for any important info the game wants to pass along to you, particularly as the audio cue can easily be lost among the noise of a firefight. And those are just some of the reasons to care about Witchfire. Have you been playing, and is there anything that's resonated with you that you feel like I missed out on? Let myself and other viewers of this video know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and for more great gaming coverage, stay right here on GameSpot.